Cool Cole, Cole Crazy, Face Palm. Oh, I like that. Hot and cold. Why? Because it was Cole Palmer who scored the equalising penalty in that 8-goal thriller, which some are describing as the best Premier League game of the season so far. Let's welcome and enjoy Mario Malchiot. Mario, with your Chelsea ways, could you enjoy this, say, as much as a neutral could? Yeah,
I think so. Why? Because, look, before the game kicked off, I will be not enjoying it if I would say, like, City is a great team. It's a better team than Chelsea is. So clearly, when they were 1-up, you enjoying it. And then, of course, they came back really quickly. Chelsea responded really quickly to them. So having said that, I felt like the game kicked off really well. And I felt like Chelsea was keeping up with the pace. They weren't like, normally when you play against City, you play defensively. And Chelsea was not playing it from the first minute.
It was exciting, wasn't it, Shaq? Of all the rubbish that we watched, this was good.
Yeah, this really was a fantastic football game. And yes, there were mistakes made on both ends, but I thought you saw two teams who were both trying to win the game, who, and I'll say this from a Chelsea perspective, certainly didn't feel intimidated or in awe of the opponents in any way. And keeping in mind, this is a Chelsea team that, well, I certainly have felt haven't really put together decent performances so far this season. I thought this was everything that they needed from, that Pochettino needed from his men, up against a City team who themselves haven't been as great, but we know exactly how good they can be. But Chelsea were fully deserving of the point. It really was a great game, especially from a neutral's perspective.
How impressed were you with Cole Palmer to step up and do that as a youngster against your old side, Ali?
He was good throughout the course of the game. And really there was one opportunity there in the second half where he breaks through the middle of the back line of Manchester City, and was unfortunate that he can't put it around Ederson. But over the course of the game, he had been really good. But it's one thing to be really good over the course of the game, and then it's a whole other story when the game is 4-3, when now you have all these emotions and all this feeling. Cole Palmer says, no, I got this. Give me the ball. I'm going to take this on. And he's able to deliver. Yeah, it was impressive from him, but it was impressive really from Chelsea's perspective. I think what was most impressive, and thank the good Lord that we don't have to say this about this game, that it wasn't a fascinating tactical battle.
No. And we didn't have to talk about VAR.
No, we did not. And what we had was two teams that, surprisingly so from Manchester City's perspective, but we had two teams that were just going back and forth at each other as if they were playing a Sunday league game. You think of Manchester City and you equate them to control, ball control, game control. This game had no control. It was back and forth, and it was just a matter as to who was going to be able to finish a counter-attacking opportunity, who was going to be able to make the correct decision with the final touch or the final delivery. In the end, 4-4, I think it's deserved from both. Manchester City would be disappointed if they don't see it out. Cole Palmer won't care.
Yeah, what do we say? Sorry, Shaka. Mario, what did you make of Cole Palmer stepping up?
I liked it a lot. You know why? Because he did it before already when they had the penalty. He grabbed the ball. I remember he had a dispute with Sterling, and Fernandes came up and he said, like, no, I want him to take it. So it was like a team effort, and they allowed him to take it, and he took that penalty, scored. And then this ball comes up again. It just like Ali said, it's a moment when you play against your old team. We know rivalry. Rivalry is not set in the sense of, like, when you leave a team, as long as you keep the respect for the team, but you always want to beat them. And not beating the team, but beating the players amongst each other. Because if you look at the game, like the way he played and the way he was ready for the game, he's growing so much in that side as well. You understand? Like, you could see the guys are growing. This is the perfect Chelsea side that you don't want to get injured. Because if you get injured now, it will take you a long time to get back into it. So it's the same like Gallagher, for example. Gallagher had a problem to getting into the team. Everybody was talking about Fernandes, waiting for Caicedo. Caicedo comes in. Look at Gallagher. One time he plays defensively. Now he changed the tactical system and he put the two, Fernandes and Caicedo, behind him, and he was the more forward kind of player. And you could see that the energy and the way he puts his stamp on the game, I enjoyed it a lot. And then Sterling and Walker, if you guys must have seen that battle. That battle was not a battle only like a top game. This is something like, you're my mate, I know who you are, and I know exactly how to compete against you. And that game, if you watch them two, Oh, they were going at it. I was enjoying it a lot. Them too. I love it. When you play your friends, there are no friends in the game. I want everybody to know that there are no friends in the game.
Mario, when have you had that experience before, playing up against a mate?
Playing up against a mate, let me see. One time I played for Holland. I get a phone call from one of my guys played with me at Chelsea. And he calls me up. He said, "Hey, come on, man. Let us win the game. Let us win the game." And I go, "Let us win the game." Come on. Holland. It was against Romania. I said, "Dude, no, we have the European Cup. I want to win. I just get my chance." And we end up winning. And it was actually, it was Mutu. We were playing against him. He called me and asked me. Oh, my God, it was crazy.
Oh, that's good. You go, yeah, all right. We'll let you win. No, Shaka interrupted you.
Yeah, no, I was just saying probably one of the most impressive things about Cole Palmer's penalty for me is not so your surplus of requirements at City, you move on, you're making the most of the opportunity, everything that's at stake in the last minute of this game. But Edison's a goalkeeper who knows him. Clear and goes the right way. Edison knows where Cole Palmer wants to put this ball and doesn't go early, times his move to perfection, and then with all the tension and with, I think the most impressive thing is that he lifts the ball midway height in the goal, and with that kind of tension, the easiest thing to do is to overcook it and put it over the crossbar.
Right.
And so everything about that, from Edison knowing Palmer and how and the execution around Cole Palmer's penalty, I thought this is so much more than just a 20-year-old.
How do you put the noise out? Because there was a lot of faff. Like from the penalty was awarded, they're checking the penalty.
It's a long old wait.
It's like 2, 3, 4. My head be like,
it's raining.
And you've got obviously everything that's going around you. And as much as you say, you just take yourself out of the situation, you focus. It's one thing to say, it's another thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, and so then you go back to repetition. You go back to having done this before and to feeling confident going through your own routine, regardless of what's going on around you, that you yourself have a routine as to how you're going to go about executing this penalty in a high moment of tension and pressure. But that's all good and well on paper.
Yeah.
And so in the end, it comes down to, hey, do you have the guts? Do you have it in your blood to do this sort of thing? And that's why penalties are not for everybody. It's a specific skill, and you have to have a certain personality to be able to take on the responsibility of a penalty and feel comfortable in the moment. How do you feel comfortable in a moment that is naturally uncomfortable?
So it's almost impossible to teach. It's like within you. Like,
you can't teach that.
And I think, look, you can have there's always guys, and I think we've all had teammates who at the end of training, they're taking penalties, right? And we all sit back and go, I don't even know why he's practicing the penalties, because if there is a penalty, he's not taking it.
Really?
That's not the guy.
Right.
That's the guy over there.
Yeah.
Players know who to trust in that moment and who are going to take on the responsibility and are far more comfortable in that sort of environment than others. And Cole Palmer, obviously, the fact that he doesn't go on and celebrate, it's almost, it was anticlimactic to him. It's like, I've gone through my routine, I've done what I know how to do, and yeah, that's all right, that's what I do. I'm here to score goals, I'm here to score a penalty. Take it. 4-4, here we go.
Mario, how do you fix it, Mario? Your boy's not bad against top 6 teams. It's when you play against the lower level sides that you struggle. How do you improve that? How do you put in those sort of performances going forward that you did against City?
Look, we have to be honest also. I think, like at the beginning when we started talking about, and I think they're building something, of course. And when you're building something, it's always going to be tricky against the teams. When you need to perform, you don't need no motivation. It's going to be against the ones that you need to create your own motivation, with all due respect. Because if you play against a so-called smaller team, I don't want to call them out of disrespecting them, but it's just, if you're not at the top, top 6, 7, then you get respect towards them. And that moment, you really got to perform, because they're playing the game against you as a final, and you need to perform. And I think the key thing is going to be that the battle between each individual in position-wise. When the competition goes higher, that's when you start getting players and saying like, oh, I got to bring it up. Look at Mudryk came on in the game, and he implemented and showed his drive going forward. And I've been waiting for him to do stuff like that, because use your pace, take people on. That's what you want. And he came on and he activated that straight away. And just all of them. Look at Sterling. He didn't even make it to the national team of England. But look at the way he played that game. Like yesterday was a player that was ready. Jackson. Look at Jackson. Jackson, if you look at overall of the game, we look at Haaland. He was active in the game. We could see him. He was moving around and doing stuff. And then at the moment when I said, what's happening to Jackson? He scores that goal. Because that's what you want. You want your striker to be available. And even if sometimes strikers are good at that, you could not see them for a couple of minutes and they pop up. And Jackson did exactly that. So having said that, those are the things that the team is going to need. It's like the battle needs to be on and making sure that they keep growing from this and don't go back and start getting sluggy against the smaller teams.
I wanted to ask you about Jackson's goal. Should Ederson have done better?
No, I don't think so. I wouldn't. I'm trying to remember which.
He saves it, parries it into
the path of Jackson. Doesn't get it wide.
Shaka, did you watch the game?
I did. That was a long time ago.
Right.
I'm just kind of thinking.
It's a subject now.
I am. Yeah.
Go ahead. You do you, Shaq.
I'm going to about Chelsea. The thing for me is, and you look at Chelsea against Spurs, against City, and teams who want to press high up the park, and you can get the running of Palmer and Sterling to exploit them behind. Contrast that with Brentford, who they lost to before Spurs, who just sit back and want to hit them on the counter-attack. Once teams drop off and sit deep, that's when you need your centre forward. And Nicholas Jackson just has not been that player.
He scored though at the weekend.
Yeah, well, again, this is different.
Ederson mistake, by the way.
I'll have to look that up. But Nicholas Jackson is not the 6-yard box striker that Chelsea need him to be. And that, for me, is why Chelsea is struggling against teams who want to sit deep. Because, again, as I was saying after the game, against Brentford, as for all their possession, I didn't think they were ever going to score. And that's exactly how it turned out.
Are they going to finish top 4, Chelsea?
No, I don't think so. Well,
is there even a conversation to be had?
I'm sure if you're a Chelsea fan, you want to have that conversation. Listen, I thought this performance against City, if they could replicate that, then yes, there'd been the conversation. But
who's more likely, Chelsea or United?
Chelsea.
Really?
Yeah. I between Chelsea and United, I go Chelsea because I still think United aren't quite sure how they're playing, what they're doing, what Ten Hag is asking them for. Whereas I feel you're starting to get a little bit more of that with Chelsea and Pochettino.
And Nkunku, of course, will be back.
And Nkunku coming back. But I feel that Chelsea are trending better in the right direction. It's just though the top 4 and those just outside, like Aston Villa, we see how Newcastle cope with their injuries. They have a little bit too much of a gap. And then, as I say, yes, we see Nkunku coming back, but we have to see how Chelsea fare against some of those other teams, not to say small in the league.
Top 4, Mario?
Top 4 is maybe a big shout, but European football. That was my call at the beginning of the season, and I'm sticking with it. And I'm not saying top 4 yet because top 4 is the Champions League stuff, but I definitely think they will make it to Europe. And it's not going to, and I'm not, look, guys, I'll be honest, we all been there, and the way the guys highlighted, don't celebrate too early, please. This is just a game. It was a great game to watch. They did really well, but don't forget, they conceded 4 goals at home. That's not what you want going forward. You don't want that because you want to implement yourself. And also for City, scoring 4 goals against City is also not a good point for City. So in both sides, I think both teams will adjust the defensive part of their team.
City still going to win the league, Ali?
Yes, they are.
Is it 3 horses? Arsenal and Liverpool?
But those horses are behind, I think, City, not only in the points, but I think I think they're a tier below Manchester City. It was concerning to see Manchester City opened up as much as they did yesterday in as many moments as they did yesterday and for as long as they did. Because, again, we equate this team with being able to control the pace of the game. And they never really got a sense of the pace of this game. This game was out of control, which for us is great. But I am sure that for Pep Guardiola, he's looking at it and saying, what are we doing? What is this nonsense? What is this back and forth? there were moments in which they could have slowed it down and just kind of, hey, let's keep possession of the ball, which is something that Manchester City usually does naturally. That wasn't quite the case yesterday. I still think that the best version of Manchester City is better than Arsenal and Liverpool.
And we said lots of nice things about Cole Palmer, and he was called up to the England squad for the first time by Gareth Southgate today, which got me thinking, boys.
Oh.
First time Neil Shaka Hislop was called up.
Oh. Just called up?
Called up, yeah, that first time.
First time I was called up, I was still in college, actually. I was still at university and got
Were
called
you?
up. Yeah, I got called up for the national
Was you
team.
outfield or...?
No, as a goalkeeper.
Oh, wow.
But I guess, I could have played both.
Us,
Yeah, I could have played both. We got a call up for what was then called the Shell Caribbean Cup. This would have been 1990. I say that because 2 games into the tournament, and we're in the group of 4. The speculation was that if we'd won the second game, which we were due to play that night, I would have played the 3rd game because we would have qualified for the knockouts.
Okay, yep.
There was an attempted coup in Trinidad and Tobago that very night.
Blooming Shack.
Yeah.
Wow.
So obviously the the tournament got cancelled at that very point. Understandably. Understandably. So it went from
So
that.
how did you find out? Not about the coup.
They wrote a letter to my dad.
Did they?
They wrote a letter
How
to my
cool
dad,
is that?
and he called and gave me the news. So I go from that in 1990 to not make my debut
Yes.
properly until 1999.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
And in the meantime, did you represent England?
As an overage under 21 player, and I was on the bench for a friendly against Chile.
Okay.
So that was my
Oh, so you flirted.
Jack Warner standoff.
Yeah, you were flirting.
No, I was Jack Warner standoff days.
Oh, yes. Jack Warner.
Yes, yes.
So that's another. God, you've got to write a book, Shaq, with all this.
Let's just move on, Dan.
People,
Nobody's won the Ace per lawyers about this conversation.
Hold on a second.
Carry on.
The people of Trinidad and Tobago were so unhappy with you being called into the national team, they decided to overthrow the government. We've had enough of this.
What about you, little Moreno?
2003, and it was for World Cup qualifiers. It was a doubleheader, actually, and I got that call, I'm guessing it's probably October or November of 2003, and I couldn't go because the LA Galaxy would not allow me to go. We were in the middle of...
How angry were you?
Yeah, I wasn't
And I've
happy.
seen you moody.
Yeah,
This must have taken it to another level.
Yeah, well, I wasn't happy. And then we were in the middle of the playoffs here in Major League Soccer.
Right.
And that was sort of the back and forth. And what was really uncomfortable is how I'm in the middle of it all. Of course, I want to play in the playoffs. This is the moment that is most important in Major League Soccer. But it is your national team, and it is World Cup qualifiers, and you get in this call-up, and I still have the letter coming from the federation and calling me to my first 2 games with the national team, and what was supposed to be my debut with the national team, and didn't quite happen, and we got eliminated from the playoffs in the, I guess it was first or second round, so none of it actually quite worked out. I was actually very unhappy about that, and I remember the meeting, so the coach is sitting there, general manager is sitting there as well, and then on the phone, the representatives from the Venezuelan Federation. Yeah, and the representatives from the Venezuelan Federation were not happy, and I guess they didn't realize that they were on speaker, or the phone was on speaker, and they're just letting it go in Spanish. Right. But these guys can't understand what's going on the phone.
What, did you translate?
Well, I translate what I could translate.
It went from R rating to PG.
Yes, absolutely. But then I made my debut, I'm guessing is January of 2004. I got called in against Australia in Caracas in a game that we tied 2-2, I believe.
Mario, what about you? Your first call-up for the Dutch team?
My first call up, I'm in London at that time, and I just got back into the Chelsea team after breaking my foot twice. So I think like, hey, whoa, this is my moment that I'm getting back into the team. And I was actually in a nightclub, and I never forget the day when my phone rang, and I was at that time, the lady I was dating at the time. I'm standing but dancing on the dance floor, my phone rings. I pick up the phone, and it was and I told one of my mates, and I say, hey, what's going on? I'm out. And he goes, no, Mario, it's your coach, Louis van Gaal. I go, oh, 1 second. So I run outside the club, and I never forget, there was 10 rooms. And 10 rooms was the place to be in London at that time. So I come outside, and he goes, hi, Mario. It's Mr. Van Gaal. I said, oh, how are you, coach? He goes, listen, I'm not going to keep you because I know you guys played the game and you guys did well. You won the game. But I just want to let you know that you're selected for the national team. And as cool as I stayed, I said, okay, thank you, coach, because the respect that I had towards him, I put the phone down. I run back in the club. I tell you, if you saw somebody dancing like me, you would have told him, hey, what are you doing? Because I was dancing like a maniac. And I wasn't I don't even drink, but I was dancing like a maniac. I'm telling you, every move in that nightclub you had seen with somebody else, I had done all of them at that moment because I was that happy.
All right.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, Mario was giving a little, hey.
Goodness, made it through that story.